It's time now for Media Watch. I'm joined here in the studio by Emma James. Hi there, Emma.
Hi there.
Now, let's start by looking at this ongoing war of words between the US President Donald Trump and, at this time, the social media giants, notably Google. What's going on?
Yes, absolutely. We are, of course, very used to these Twitter rants from the US president, but this one came before 5 o'clock in the morning, which is a little unusual. And he's since warned Google, Facebook and Twitter to be careful. It's all about whether or not Google and others, as he says here, are suppressing voices of conservatives and hiding information and news that is good. He believes there is a clear political bias against him and against the right on these social media sites and obviously Google's search site. A lot of people reporting along these lines, and a lot of people talking about it on social media too, that he started a feud with an algorithm after Googling his own name. Now, people seem to have imagined that at 5 o'clock in the morning he was up Googling himself to see how many times he popped up on the news feed and what stories were out there. Now, it does seem more likely, though, that the source of his outrage actually came from a conservative website, PJ Media. This is an article that was put out there a few days ago, August the 25th. 96% of Google search results for Trump news are from liberal media outlets. Now, Donald Trump didn't cite a source, but he did use that exact figure of 96%, which does make it look very likely that this is the article he was taking his information from, rather than actually sitting there Googling himself. PJ Media, for your information, according to Media Bias FactCheck, are very much right of centre, not quite into the extreme right bracket. And they actually say that they are rated borderline questionable because although there have been quite a few stories that have been proven to be completely false, some of which are still on their site and remain unchanged, they haven't yet breached the threshold that would be needed to be deemed completely untrustworthy. And it is actually quite popular, this site. They say it gets 13 million plus page views every month, which isn't bad going at all. Now, Google, for its part, denies that there's any kind of political bias involved in its search engine. But Wired reports that really Google is the perfect target for Donald Trump's claims because they can't be easily fact-checked. And they also say in this article that the charges of bias against Google are going to stick because no algorithm is truly neutral. And of course, this comes in the wake of various right-wing accounts, some of them very well known, being shut down on social media, including Alex Jones of InfoWars. He actually claims to be talking to Donald Trump about this very issue. We don't know if that's actually true. Now, a rather different take on this comes from Jeffrey Fowler, who's the tech correspondent for the Washington Post. And what he says is that although Trump's attacks aren't necessarily grounded in solid research, Google isn't beyond reproach either, saying that they're not that open about how their algorithm works, and also reminding us that not so long ago they were planning to actually censor searches in China and actually facilitate censorship in China. So interesting takes on that. It is also worth remembering as well, there's a certain irony in all this, in that as this is going on, Donald Trump has been railing against politicised censorship, while he still has many Twitter users blocked from seeing his tweets. He was taken to court earlier this year. He was told he mustn't block Twitter users because he uses his account as a means of presidential communication. It is actually an official means by which he speaks to the people of the United States. So he was told by a judge, you have to unblock these people. He hadn't abided by that, so they went back to court yesterday. 20 more users have been freed from Twitter jail, if you like. This gentleman saying, we did it, guys. We won the lawsuit. We're finally unblocked by Donald Trump. This gentleman, if you're wondering why he got blocked in the first place, advised Donald Trump to spend more time with his sons and got duly blocked for it. But it would appear that some of the followers blocked, whether they are the worst offenders or not, I'm not sure, still haven't been unblocked. So it is interesting to see that Donald Trump is bemoaning censorship by some while censoring others from seeing his tweets.
All right. Okay, well, there we are. Something to celebrate if you've been unblocked by Donald Trump. Now, let's go to a buzzing part of New York City, because, of course, it's buzzing with something that's not to do with social media, but to do with something a little bit more lifelike.
Yes, absolutely. Times Square is, of course, one of the most visited places in the world. I think it's something like 50 million visitors every year go there. But at this time of year, sometimes it gets invaded by pesky winged creatures. It's happened before. This time it was around 30,000 bees that actually swarmed a hot dog stand. You can see them. That's the sort of umbrella over the hot dog stand. I don't know why they'd chosen that in particular. Perhaps they had a lot of honey in their mustard or something. Lots of people taking to Twitter to share their images of this phenomenon. Insane swarm of bees outside my office in Times Square. And you can see lots of people walking around looking not too impressed at their presence. And on this one, you can see on the top of the umbrella there, that brown patch that is made solidly of bees that have swarmed onto that umbrella. Lots of professional photographers taking fantastic images of people looking extremely uncomfortable because we all know how we react when we have a bee or a wasp around us. It's kind of an involuntary reaction, although not for everyone, apparently. This gentleman here taking a moment to get a perfect close-up of a bee on his hand as he's standing there with his mobile phone. It's also been a chance for some people to make some very bad puns. New York City is buzzing after bees swarmed a hot dog stand in Times Square, says the Huffington Post. Wall Street Journal went with their NYPD handled sting operation in Times Square because it was actually the police department who were brought in to get rid of these bees, amazingly enough. And lots of people saying that they never knew this existed before. I need to know more stat, says this Twitter user, because they were actually brought in with a sort of vacuum cleaner kind of thing, and they sucked up the bees to get rid of them. And this woman saying that that feeling when you graduate the police academy only to find yourself vacuuming bees off a hot dog stand in Times Square. I don't know whether it would be considered a particularly poor job to get. I don't know, but certainly lots of people very pleased. And if you are concerned about their fate, they were taken away safely. They weren't killed. They've been released elsewhere to go about their business.
Okay, well, they've buzzed off to pastures new, pastures greener, no doubt, than
Hopefully.
Times Square. Thank you very much indeed, Emma James, with today's edition of Media Watch.